By now, you've probably heard about Counter-Strike's weird little cousin. And we don't mean huNter. You know how Riot Games looked at Dota and went, yeah, we can do that, but more accessible and also better, and then they did just that? There'll be civil discussion about that in the comments, I'm sure. Riot tried to do the same with Counter-Strike, but instead of making it better, they made it weirder. Not better, maybe more accessible, and definitely weirder. Please keep these people away from me. So what makes it different? What did Riot succeed on, and where did they miss the mark? We've already made a bit of a joke about the E-Datas, but it's actually a marker of something Riot have done quite well. It's clearly more accessible for other demographics than male 20-something gamer types. Be that due to its marketing, its stylization, its variety of character models, or its community, Valorant has attracted a completely different group of people to tactical FPSs that CSGO hasn't always done. There are, of course, exceptions, but as a whole, it certainly seems like a higher percentage of Valorant gamers are non-male. Valorant also has some refinements to the client and matchmaking in particular, including the in-client Premier system, which basically makes it easier to play as a team in tournament-style formats regardless of skill level, which is really damn cool. It's cleaner in that there's no blood, no controversial terrorist team names, no real gun names, and no real people. It makes it easier for sponsors and younger people to get involved. Valorant as well has some wicked gimmicks. The zip lines on Fracture are a bit unimportant and pointless, but the 3-site map, Haven, is a genuinely cool twist on an old concept. There are some quirks of the map system that we'll get into later, but there's at least some interesting ideas in there. It does teach you quite a few fundamentals of tac shooters in very obvious ways. Post plants, use your Viper mollies or your Killjoy mollies on the bomb. It's very simple in that case. There's definitely something to the fact as well that both teams have the exact same guns. If you prefer the Vandal or the Phantom, you can use it every round. There's maybe a balance issue there, but there's more of a question as to which is better. In CS, the AK is just better than the M4, and the T-side inherently have a weapon advantage to counter the CT's tactical advantage, which doesn't exist in the same sense in Valorant. Having so many different agents, with more coming out every so often, adds, at least theoretically, a hell of a lot more depth. Bored of playing a duelist? Take a completely different path and play a Sentinel. Bored of being a site anchor? Pick Jet and snipe mid. Well, if you can pick Jet, of course. That leads into one of the first issues with Valorant. While having so many agents adds depth and gives people very clear roles, which can help them learn, it also causes friction. Do the words Instalock Jet and Reyna give you a Pavlovian fight or flight response yet? Because they will. Because of those clear roles, most people tend to gravitate towards one or the other. But if your team already has a Sage and you main Sage, all of a sudden you're uncomfortable. To some extent that exists in Counter-Strike, but when somebody takes your role, you still have all of the required skills to do the job in terms of utility, guns and hands at least. It feels a little unfamiliar, but it's quite nice sometimes. In Valorant, it's a whole different kettle of fish. You've got completely different utility and ways to approach the game, and there's 5 colourful flashing things on your screen. My god, Valorant can be hard to understand sometimes. It's really hard to figure out what exactly is happening and what you're supposed to do about it, especially as a newer or less consistent player. Also, in some ways, while there's more depth to Valorant because of all the agents, that can actually go the opposite way. Less is indeed often more, and simplicity actually adds complexity in some ways. Put it this way, while every agent can play everywhere, some are going to be objectively better than others at some roles. No game's ever had lots of characters and each of them has been different and perfectly balanced. So while you can do lots of different setups and executes in theory, some will just be better. What's the point in all of these cool ideas if Sage can just say lol wall GG and end it all? In CS, everyone has the same tools, so in some ways you have to be more creative to find space and win duels with the limited tools you have. If you've ever heard of the idea that restriction breeds great art, this is a similar concept. Though Valorant does seem to attract more people to play the game, barrier to getting good is very high. If this is your first tac shooter, man alive, learning about all the tricks is going to be a steep learning curve. It'd be like trying to learn chess by playing a board with 32 knights. While Valorant's matchmaking system is actually very good, it does for some reason not allow you to pick the maps you want to play. CSGO's system is also flawed because people can queue for just one map and get massively overranked by learning that. But also just let me not play Fracture, I hate that map. While CSGO has some dodgy maps and strange decisions regarding the rotation, there is a lot more choice because people can and do make custom maps, and some of those get picked up. It doesn't exist in Valorant where Riot make all the maps. Both games have balance issues and always will, and there's an argument as to which is worse. Valorant has agent-to-agent balance problems, which will be frustrating as only one person gets to play the broken agent on each team, whereas in CS if a gun is broken, it's broken for everyone. Which is worse? Who knows? In Valorant, one guy gets to ruin everyone else's fun. In CS, we get 5 broken guns, which can also be horrible, but at least you have your own. Well, if you ignore that Valorant has also had some gun balance issues as well, but what game doesn't? Valorant appears to be a more streamer-friendly game. A lot of people watch Valorant and a lot of the streamers switched over. Fundamentally, the potential audience is wider, the game is newer, flashier, and more colourful. It's just cooler to look at, and the flashy moments are really fucking cool. CS had its time as the streamer game, and maybe the reason there's a much bigger culture of streaming over on Valorant is that a lot of the big Americans switched over. CS is still the king of esports though, hitting new heights year on year and just being the best spectator esport. Valorant suffers from the very thing that makes it absorbing. There's so much going on that without being intensely involved in the game and the storylines, it can be hard to follow. CSGO fundamentally is easier to explain to somebody who doesn't play the game. You can show your parents, your cousins, your pets, and they'll probably understand. We at ESL are here to make a definitive conclusion that none of this really matters. Both games are incredible in their own rights with their own unique twists on the greatest genre of games ever made. If you like one more than the other, that's great. Good for you. Enjoy that game, talk about how great it is, and make sure you leave very angry comments to people who like the other game on this video. We love both, and if we had more free time, we would play both all day, honestly. Maybe you guys don't hate each other because you're so different, it's because you're so similar. Happy shooting, gamers, and let's come together to hate a common enemy, MOBAs. Just kidding, we love Dota.